Hi, today I'm gonna show you how to knit this cable Raglan summer sweater, Japanese short row and inner pocket included. Let's get started. Please check my description box for all the details such as yarn and needles. Today I am going to show you how to knit this top-down Raglan sweater with inner pocket. This is actually optional. And cable knitting out front, also the increasing line, which called Raglan line, with cable knitting. And back of the neck, I increased a little bit, I raised with technique called Japanese short rows. The back of the neck should be higher than front piece. That fits you better. And for the sleeve, you can adjust the length if you like. I will talk about it later. This is what I used. Cast on, multiple of 12. I made 96. All the needle information and everything is in my description box, so please follow my the written instruction. However, this is completely customized sweater, so you can use pretty much any type of the needle, also any type of the yarn. And this is for myself and size small, I should say. After the cast, you will connect both ends. Make sure the cast is not twisted and you have to knit face to right side. I am going to use the magic loop technique because I would like to use longer cable. If you have the perfect length of the knitting, you don't really have to do the magic loop technique, but it's gonna get bigger and bigger, so I should say you should use the magic loop technique. Anyway, if you never done that, I will put the link in my description box. Anyway, let's start rib, repeat off, knit 2 and purl 2 until your desired length. I made about the 2-inch. This is very easy, right? But you have to be very careful on the first row. Make sure repeat off, knit 2 and purl 2. From the second row, it's easy. Just knit over knit stitch and purl over purl stitch. That's about it. And please use the begging marker if you need to. I usually put the begging marker on the second row because it's easier for me. There you go. I need about 2-inch. This is good enough. If you wanna do longer, that's fine. And next row, I'm going to knit 1 round, but first of all, I have to change the needle. I want to use longer cable because I am going to increase stitches, so I'm gonna change whole thing. Also, while you're knitting next round, I want you to add 2 markers. Count from begin marker evenly and put the side marker. The top part, including the begin marker, would be back piece, and the other side at the bottom part without the begin marker, that's gonna be front piece. please make sure begin marker has to be in the middle of back piece. That's all you have to, follow and add to side marker. By the way, side marker means cut in half. So back piece and front piece has same stitch number. Now I am going to use only back piece because I would like to raise back of your neck a little bit, because if the back piece is higher than front piece, it fits you better. Usually 1 inch to 2 inch higher than front piece. This is Christmas sweater. I knitted it long time ago. And this is front piece. And back piece rib is sticking out already. Maybe that's about 2 inch higher, right? And if I turn this sweater, you will notice more. There you go. After the rib, few rows, actually maybe 10 rows, is higher than front piece, as you can see, right? That's what I'm going to do. And there's so many ways you can do that. With this sweater, I just knit back and forth, back and forth. If I do just back and forth, there's a tiny gap here and there. This is sort of okay. I don't really mind it, but a lot of people use the technique called short rows. And there's all kinds of the short row technique. German short row, wrap and turn. And this is my socks. I knitted it before. That's the short row technique to make the heel. And this was wrap and turn technique. It was beautiful, fine, great. But today I am going to show new technique, which is Japanese short row. You need clip marker like that. So let's plan now. First of all, you have to decide how many rows you want to raise at the very back of the sweater, which is around the begin marker. And like I said, 1 inch to 2 inch you should raise. And I decide I am going to raise about 12 rows. Why 12 rows? Because I was thinking between 10 to 15 rows. And my stitch count of back piece is 48. 48 is multiple of 12. It's easy to figure it out, the magic number. That is the reason why. Okay, so let's talk about the Japanese short row magic number. The math is in my description box, but first of all, the whole stitch count divided by 2 is, back piece stitch count, right? And mine is 48 stitch for back piece. So 48 stitch divided by how many rows you want to increase at the very back of your neck, which is 12 rows for me. So 48 divided by 12 is 4. So my magic number is 4. And if you don't really understand, don't worry about it. Once you watch how the Japanese short row goes, you probably understand. Let's start. Rule number 1, knitting side. Knit until last 4 stitch. This 4 is my magic number. So if your magic number is different than 4, you like, okay, example 6, you have to knit until last 6 stitch before the marker. Mine 4 stitch. That's my magic number. So here comes. I knit until last 4 before the side marker. Then you turn the work. Now you're facing to wrong side, which is purl side. Slip 1 stitch purlwise the yarn front. Then put the clip on the working yarn like that. There you go. You got it? Then purl all the way down to last 4 stitch before the other side of the side marker. Okay, 4 stitch, which means my magic number. And I actually changed the side marker color, the other side, so it's easy to understand. I don't want you to get confused. So anyway, pass the begin marker and just make purl, purl, purl until last 4, which is my magic number, stitch before the other side of the marker. There we go. So see you there. And here comes close to last 4 stitch. There you go. Last 4 stitch. That's my magic number. And turn. Now you're facing to knitting side. And yarn back. Slip 1 purlwise like that. Then clip 1 marker. I'm using different marker, color of marker. This side is orange. There you go. And yarn still at the back. Then just knit. And this time you knit until last 4 stitch before the gap. And some people think, what do you mean by gap? Yes, there is gap, and I will show you, okay? Because you didn't knit every stitch, then turn. There's the gap. So I will show you again, but you will actually easily recognize there's a gap. There you go, that's a gap, right? So here comes. You see the green marker I added last time, right? So can you see right there? There's a gap. So I stop 4 stitch before the gap, then yarn front and slip 1 purlwise. Put the clip on onto the working yarn. There you go. Then start making purl. And again, this time purl until last 4 stitch before the gap. So you just actually have to do back and forth, but I'll show you again the gap. Gap is right after the orange marker. That was the gap. So it's easy to see actually. Here comes. There's a gap and then 4 stitch, then turn. Yarn back, slip 1 stitch purlwise and put the clip on onto the working yarn, then start knitting. And when to stop? 4 stitch before the gap. There you go. That's the last, the clip, and 4 stitch before that, right? And you just have to back and forth, back and forth. As you can see, because you are going back and forth, obviously around the beginning marker area, it's thicker and thicker. There you go. I did 5 times on the left side and 5 times on right side, which is I increased 10 rows. And there's only 4 stitch left both side. And I don't want to, put the marker right before and after the beginning marker. So I am going to adjust. You could adjust at the very beginning or ending. I could also stop right there and, ended up increasing only 10 rows. I could do that, but, I'm going to actually increase a couple more rows. And this time, I'm going to just knit 2 because there's only, 4 stitch left. So, and then 2 stitch before the gap, then turn, yarn front, and slip 1 stitch with purlwise and put the last marker on the working yarn and purl until same thing, last 2 stitch before the gap this time because I'm adjusting the numbers. Supposed to be 4, but there's no more stitch, so it's really up to you. There you go. And then turn, yarn at the back, and then slip 1 stitch purlwise. Then put the last orange marker onto the working yarn and then knit. This is creating gap row. Now you have to close that gap. Where the markers are, except the side marker, there's a gap, right? And again, you raise the back of the neck, and towards the side marker, there's less and less. You know why, right? Because you just go back and forth, back and forth. Now, let's close the gap. Closing the gap is easy and fun, actually. Okay, so let's do that. First of all, you gotta close the gap on the knitting side. Okay, so working yarn is at the back and knit until the gap. So knit 1 and 2. You pass that, green marker. Just be careful. And here comes gap. I don't like that gap, right? So pull the green marker like that and hook on to the left needle. There we go. Then remove the marker. Now you have 2 stitch there, and that hook stitch and original stitch knit 2 together because this is knitting side. There you go. I closed the gap. So let's do that again. Knit until the gap. There's a gap and there's the green marker. Pull and hook onto left needle. Do not twist the stitch. Okay, now you create one stitch above the gap. Now you close the gap with knit 2 together. There you go. I close the gap again. Let's do that one more time. Okay? Knit until next gap. You have to knit one more, right? Until the gap. So, there we go. Then, there's a marker behind. Pull, don't twist, hook onto the left needle, then remove the marker. That's why you need the clip marker. There we go. And close the gap with knit 2 together. There we go. Knit until next gap. I'm actually having so much fun. Then hook onto left needle, remove the marker, and knit 2 together. And do it again. The beauty of the Japanese short row is very obvious which stitch you're picking up and do the knit 2 together. You know, there's the German short row. It's actually completely okay. I like the German short row, but sometimes I get confused. Oh, which stitch I have to make, knit 2 together kind of thing, right? But this one is very obvious because you just pull the stitch and hook onto the, left needle. I just actually forgot. There we go. So you know exact, the stitch you have to, knit 2 together and close the gap. Anyway, this is the last gap I closed. Then knit 1. Then turn around. Now you're on the purl side, wrong side, and start making purl. There you go. Just purl until first gap. There we go. Just purl. This side already done. Nothing worry about, this side. Past the beginning marker, the closing gap start. Here comes, slide the beginning marker and purl until the gap. There we go. Now gap. Same thing. Pull the orange marker, hook onto the left needle, then remove. And this time, you're on the purl side, so purl 2 together to close the gap. That's it. And again, purl until next gap. Pull and hook onto left needle, remove the marker, and purl 2 together to close the gap. There you go. Again, purl, purl until next gap. Then pull the marker, hook onto left needle, remove the marker, and purl 2 together. So easy. Do that again. Purl until next gap. Then pull, hook on to left needle, remove the marker, and purl together. Again, this is optional. You don't have to raise your back of the neck. And 2, you can use any other short row technique. I kind of want to show you new technique, every video. So, I use the Japanese short row. It's really up to you. If you really want to, use the basic, I can put the basic Raglan sweater link down there. So you can use just back and forth technique. Okay, this is the last gap. Pull, hook, remove the marker, and purl 2 together. And after purl 2 together, make 1 more purl. There you go. Then turn. Now you're on the knitting side, and then I want you to knit 1 round. Okay, and you gotta do a couple more things. Okay, because there's a little small gap there, so I want you to close that too. Every time you knit and turn the work, there's gotta be little tiny gap like that. This is not the short row because I knit last one and turn, so there's gotta be the tiny gap. So I want to close that too. So knit 2 together. So I decrease 1, so I increase 1 with make 1 right. Okay, this is up to you. Knit 2 together and make 1 right or make 1 left. It's up to you. But keep knitting, and you have a tiny gap the other side too. So you have to, close that if you want right there. Okay, because, the last time you make a purl and turn, right? So knit 2 together and you decrease 1 stitch. So I increase 1 stitch with make 1 left. This is up to you. Okay, that's about it. And back to the begin marker, and let's see what it's really like. There we go. This is end of the Japanese short row. Don't you think it's beautifully, increased at the back of your neck? And then this is about 1 inch to 2 inch higher than front piece. And I already, finished knitting, and I wear the sweater. It fits me perfectly. I really like it. And there's no tiny gap. I pretty much closed, right? So it's really up to you which technique you want to use. New technique, always fun. Let's move on to yoke. Now you have to figure it out. Magic number 2, yoke magic number. Whole stitch divided by 6. Mine is 96 divided by 6 is 16. 16 is my magic number. And back piece and front piece, you need magic number times 2, which is 32 for me. And sleeve, just magic number times 1 each. So back piece, left and right, 16, 16, total of 32. And front piece, same. 16 times 2 is 32. And rest should be magic number times 1. For me, 16 stitch each. Then you add markers like that. Again, All the details are in my description box. So follow my instruction, then add markers. And this is not the end. Those 4 markers are Raglan line, which you need to increase. And I'm going to add cable design. So 2 stitch from green marker each side. So I add 2 orange marker. Those in between orange markers has 4 stitch for the cabling. Okay, so you add orange marker, well, any color you want, around that green marker. Then remove the green marker because you don't need it. That's just for the, the counting purpose, right? Again, between those 2 orange marker, you need 2 plus 2, so total of 4 stitch. Then remove the green marker. Also, you need front design, and I need 19 stitch for front design. And if you need to adjust, 1 stitch, you have to, adjust. It's really up to you. And there's the detail in my description box. And if you don't understand, just leave the comment which part you don't understand. Anyway, front design 19. I put the green marker, and rest of them are orange marker, and then increase Raglan cable line marker. So let's start increasing. Raglan row number 1. Pretty much on it. And before and after the marker, you have to increase 1 stitch with yarn over technique. And this is not only one, the spot. Every, Raglan, line marker, you need to do the same thing. Anyway, knit until the marker, yarn over. So now yarn front, slide the marker, and knit 4. That's it. And every orange marker, which is Raglan markers, you have to do same thing. Slide the marker, yarn over, then knit until next Raglan marker. So yarn over outside of the orange marker. So let's do that again. I don't want to show you every Raglan line. Okay, so you really have to, make sure you do same thing every orange marker area, which is, the yoke increasing. There you go. Yarn over, slide the marker, and knit 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then slide the marker and yarn over and knit. And I'm just telling you the other side, you do same thing. Those 4 spots you have to increase 2 stitch each. So in one row you will increase 8 stitch total. And here comes front row number 1, front design row. Very straightforward. Purl 2, knit 15, and purl 2. That's about it. If the pattern is very straightforward, I'm not going to show you every row. There's written pattern in my description box, so you can make copy and then follow my written instruction. This is end of the front design row number 1. I just made the purl 2, slide the marker, and again, I just want to make sure, you have to do the same thing. Raglan row number 1. Knit until the marker and yarn over, slide the marker, then knit 4. And slide the marker again, then yarn over. Then knit until, other side. And Raglan row number 2 and front design row 2 is straightforward. All knit, and front row number 2 is same as front row number 1. So let's start Raglan row number 3. This is actually same as Raglan row number 1. Maybe I didn't have to show you, but again, knit until the marker. And I just want to show you one thing. There we go. Yarn over and knit creates the hole, and that's actually completely fine. That texture I want. Now I want to talk about front design row number 3. The new technique kicks in, so I'll talk about it. Purl 2, then knit 3. C6F 2 times. Cable 6 front. So pick up 3 stitch with cable needle and put the cable needle out front. Then knit 3 from the left needle. Then come back to cable needle, then knit 3. This is C6F, which is cable 6 front. And you have to do this twice. Take your time. If you're struggling, there you go. One more time. With cable needle, pick up 3 stitch. 1, 2, 3. And put the cable needle out front. Then knit 3 from left needle. Then come back to cable needle. Then knit 3 from cable needle. Very straightforward. Simple. And if this is the first time, cable knitting, take your time. After that, purl 2. This is the front design row number 3. Easy. And after this, straightforward. So please check my written instruction and then see you on Raglan row number 5 and front design row number 7. There's a new technique kicks in. Raglan row 5. Yarn over, slide the marker, and C4B. And rest of them are on knit. So C4B means pick up 2 stitch with cable needle and put the cable needle at the back because it says cable for back. Then knit 2 from left needle, come back to cable needle, then knit 2 from cable needle. This is it. And there you go. Good. One last stitch and slide the marker. Don't forget to make yarn over. There you go. And raglan row number 6 is all knit, and this raglan design complete on row number 6. So repeat row number 1 to row number 6 until reach the armpit. The length reach the armpit. I did total of 7 times and finish on row number 6. And this is up to you, your size. And again, I just want to show you 4CB one more time. With cable needle, pick up 2 and put the cable knit at the back, then knit 2 from left needle and come back to cable needle and then knit 2 from cable needle. This is the cable for back. And again, raglan row is, 4 of them. Please don't forget about that. And repeat raglan row number 1 to raglan row number 6 until the length reach under armpit. Again, I did total of 7 times. And I'll show you the picture when to stop. And it's really up to you. If you want to knit kind of, tight sweater, you should finish, quite early. Anyway, let's talk about front design, row number 7. This is easy too, but C6B kicks in. Purl 2 to start. Then C6B twice. So with the cable needle, pick up 3 stitch from left needle. 1, 2, 3, and cable 6 back. So put the cable needle at the back. Then knit 3 from left needle. Then come back to cable needle. Then knit 3. This is cable 6 back, C6B. And you have to do this twice. So there you go. Right after that, you have to pick up 3 stitch from left needle with cable needle and put the cable needle at the back. Then knit 3 from left needle. Then come back to cable needle and knit 3. Super easy. Then knit 3, purl 2. That's it. And this front design cable complete on row number 8. So you have to repeat row number 1 to row number 8 until the end of the sweater, which is before, rib starts. super easy. And if you don't like this design, you don't have to, do the cable knitting, or you can actually um, use your own design. It's really up to you, but I really like this one. So you just have to keep, knitting and knitting and knitting, and I'll show you when to stop for sleeve. There we go. This is the time you should stop, you know, under armpit. By the way, if you're knitting for somebody else, you should measure the Raglan line like that. Grab the T-shirt for your kids or husband and measure it, and that's the time you have to stop, right? And my measurement was 7 and 7.5, something like that. Last time I knit a lot bigger, and this time I kind of want to knit a little bit tighter, so I stopped 7.5. Okay, so now we have to separate um, body and sleeves, and you need scrap yarn with tapestry needle, and do not use a stitch holder because it's quite big carve. So scrap yarn is the best. And anyway, you really have to watch when you have to pick the sleeve stitch from outside marker to outside marker. Please do not pick up, the wrong stitch. Anyway, from the begin marker, you just have to knit until the first raglan marker. And then you start picking up, I should say transfer all the sleeve stitch onto the scrap yarn. So just knit, knit, knit until first raglan marker. Here comes. There you go. So remove the marker and the other side of the raglan line, outside, okay, right there. The whole stitch will be sleeve stitch. So transfer all the stitch onto scrap yarn, and you can remove the marker because you don't need them anymore. So all the way down to outside marker. Should I say maybe second marker for the other side? After this, it's going to be super easy. Anyway, from outside of the raglan line to the other side of the outside of raglan line. Here comes almost end. And please make sure the scrap yarn is long enough. If it's long enough, you can actually put it on to make sure your size is all okay. Well, if it's not all okay, you have to kind of go back. So you have to actually make sure to do this. There you go. And I'm not knitting sleeve for a little while. I want to finish the body first. So tie a knot like that, loose. So, if it's loose enough, I can actually try it on later. So anyway, there's one more sleeve, the other side, obviously. So again, you do same thing, knit all the way down to the first marker, should I say outside? So outside to outside marker, that's gonna be the sleeve. So you do exactly same thing. You just pick a sleeve stitch onto the scrap yarn. Now you have to reconnect the body and add 8 new casts, just like that. Use one finger and create the new cast, 8 of them. You know, why 8? Because it's multiple of 4. I want to keep the whole stitch multiple of 4. And then start knitting. That's it. Okay, we join the body, add 8 new cast, and then start knitting to the other side. There we go. I'm done for both side of the sleeve. Both 8 new cast added, and then it all joined. So just keep knitting for the body parts. Obviously, the front design, you have to use the design pattern until the end, which is before the rib. And if you're knitting for yourself, put it on and make sure, well, you already made sure, supposed to, so it should be okay, but I did anyway. It looks like that. It's perfect size. Now I want to talk about pocket, inner pocket. And this is completely optional. If you want to have a pocket, this is how you do it. You have to make a plan how big, you want. And then I decide, a little higher up because, this pocket it is for my cell phone or doggy poo poo bag. So, from the armpit, about the 4-inch down, and then towards to kind of side. I don't want a pocket out front. So towards to almost, side of my body. And that stitch count is multiple of 4 plus 2 because I want to make rib on top of the pocket and start with knit and then end with knit. So has to be multiple of 4 plus 2. This is totally an option. If you want to use the garter stitch on top of the pocket, the stitch number is pretty much, any number you can pick. But I decide I am going to add, the rib same as neck rib and, hem rib. So I picked the multiple of 4 plus 2, which I think I picked 18 stitch, 18 stitch. Anyway, so, and by the way, you have to count how many rows you did. So, can you actually remember what I just said? And I'll explain it to you later on. So, anyway, here comes pocket marker first. There you go. And remove the first marker and prepare contrast color of yarn, just like that, contrast, because later on you need to see, where the pocket starts, and then knit across until the, second pocket marker. Right there. with, different color of yarn. Here comes the end of the pocket. Remove the marker. And now transfer all the stitch you just knit with the different color, mine navy blue, back onto left needle. And I don't want you to drop the stitch off, so please take your time. Here comes almost end of pocket. I mean backwards, obviously. There we go. And this is pocket preparing. And key for success, please watch this video until the end. And now with just a regular working yarn, knit through. And just pretend nothing happened. And again, you have to count how many rows you knit from now, because I want you to stop when your pocket is deep enough. That way you can minimize the sewing pocket, and you will understand what I'm talking about. So please count how many rows you're knitting. Anyway, I knit across the scrap yarn part and just keep knitting and knitting and knitting. And when to stop? Whenever you think your pocket is deep enough, and I'll show you. And one thing I want to tell you about the pocket, do not make huge pocket, because this is knitting. It will stretch, right? So you can't really put heavy stuff in your pocket. So, that's my suggestion. There we go. I knit 20 rows, something like that. And I stopped right there because I thought this is the deep enough for my pocket, right? So now we have to create the pocket with, another needle. Hopefully you have another set of, the same size of the needle. If not, use closest needle. And you need the stitch holder. If you don't have the stitch holder, you can use the scrap yarn as well. Okay, so I will cut that, navy blue yarn and picking up the stitch. There's going to be 2 stitch at the bottom and at the top. As you can see, the top part will be the bottom of the sweater. So be aware of it, because my sweater is now upside down. So cut the scrap yarn like that. And top part, which is the bottom of the sweater, picking up the stitch, the bottom of the sweater side with the stitch holder, and top part of the top side of the sweater, picking up the stitch with needle. And I seriously don't want you to drop the stitch like that, so please be careful. Take your time. And you can actually use the tapestry needle first and then transfer back onto the, needle or stitch holder, it's really up to you. The way, easier for you is the best. Use the cable needle or other needle, whatever, whatever the best for you. Anyway, just pick up the stitch, the bottom and top part separately. And this is totally optional. If you don't want to do it or if you don't need a pocket, you just have to skip. This is kind of long clip. So, I will write it down the timing later in my description box. So if you don't need the pocket, just skip to the next clip. And if you decide you're gonna create the pocket, make sure to pick up last stitch. And how you're gonna make sure about it? Well, count the stitch, right? Because I decide 18 stitch for pocket. So the top and bottom, you must have 18 stitch for both sides total. That's how you figured it out. You pick up, last stitch. I mean, every stitch. There you go. And once you're done, you take the scrap yarn out. Now you create the opening for pocket. There we go. And there's reason why I use the stitch holder at the bottom side because I'm not knitting right away. I am actually knitting the pocket side. So I told you count how many rows, right? If it's 20 rows, you have to knit 20 rows, right? That's gonna be top part. That's the bottom. I'm just telling you, which side I'm knitting, right? So with the another ball of yarn, you have to knit. And now you're knitting flat. So on the right side, knit, and wrong side, purl. That's it. And then just, knit the rows you just, knit for the body. And for me, 20. There you go. Just go back and forth, back and forth. There you go. Now I finish. And same row as body. I guess almost. One more row to go. Again, on the wrong side, you have to make a purl. Stockinette stitch. Quite easy. There we go. Done. That part is going to be inside of the pocket. Okay? So you know what I just did, right? So that's gonna be outside of the pocket. So the one you just knit, put inside, just like that. There we go. And that marker is where the pocket start. I removed the marker, but if this way is easier for you, keep the marker, right? so you know when the pocket starts. So knit until the marker. There you go. And now you close the bottom of the pocket together. This is the reason why I made sure I told you many times to count, the rows you knit, because I want to close the pocket together. So you don't really have to, sew them later on. There you go. Kind of knit together. Then put the needle front first and back, front and back, then knit together and drop the 2 stitch off together. There you go. And now you close the bottom part, but the side part is still open and you have to sew them. There we go. Just take your time. Yeah, until the pocket finished, you have to do this. There you go, almost done. Sometimes the way you pick the stitch, it's kind of twisted. So if it's twisted, you can actually untwist and then, knit. That'll be easier. There you go. I think it's done. And I knit few rows, the body part, because that way it's easier to finish the pocket. Anyway, as you can see, the bottom of the pocket is now closed. However, the side of the pocket is still open. Also the top part, and top part has to be open because it's pocket. And then the again, the front pocket, top part, I want to add rib. So I still have to, knit few rows for the pocket. First of all, transfer all the pocket stitch from the stitch holder onto needle. And this is quite easy. Picking up all the top stitch on the pocket, just like that. And then another ball of yarn. And again, I told you I want to add rib, which is repeat of knit 2 and purl 2. Then finish with knit 2. There you go. When I pick up the stitch with needle, sometimes I twist it. So if it's twisted, you just untwist and then knit. I'm actually picking up the stitch, most of them twisted, but you just have to do it only one row. And then I guess what I'm doing is, there's lots of twisted stitch, so I knit one row and I untwisted whole stitch, and then from the wrong side I start rib, which is from wrong side, so from purl 2, repeat off purl 2 and knit 2, and then finish with purl 2 because this is on wrong side. And next row you just knit over knit stitch and purl over purl stitch. That's about it. And you can knit until your desired length, and which is not too much, maybe about inch, something like that. Go and finish with purl 2 because this is wrong side. And flip. Now you're facing to right side and should be start with knit 2 and finish with knit 2. And again, from now on, just knit over knit stitch and purl over purl stitch. And once you knit enough rib, you just cast off, knit 2, then cast off. Then next 2 is purl, so purl, then cast off. And almost end of the pocket. After cast off, you have to sew them, right? Because the rib is, not attached to the body. So you keep the longer tail, and I'm gonna knit straight down. Okay, the first of all, outside, right? The rib part. Just put the needle into the pocket rib and the body part, and don't pull too hard. And at the corner, you might want to sew a couple times to make sure it's secure. And just like that, the edge of the pocket and the same line of the body line, so the sewing part can't really show. There we go. And this is end of the rib, and maybe one more. Then push the needle inside, which is the back part, and then sew them straight down. So now you close the side of the pocket inside. There you go. And you do exactly same thing on the other side to finish the pocket. There we go. It's done. I really like the inner pocket because it's very smooth on the, right side. So you can't really see the, pocket line, right? Now let's finish the body. I knit few rows after the pocket. Then I decide, okay, this is, long enough. So I change the needle and then start rib, which is repeat off, knit 2 and purl 2. And before you start, make sure the whole stitch count should be multiple of 4. And should be multiple of 4. Repeat off, knit 2 and purl 2 until your desired length, and then cast off. And you already know how to do cast off. So after this, I am going to jump to the sleeve part. It's almost done. Hang in there. I already knit the other side of the sleeve. And, the first sleeve, you have to write it down, what you have done. And then second sleeve, you do exactly same thing. So I am going to knit just like, the first sleeve. The first of all, transfer all the sleeve stitch onto needle. Just like that, right? And then knit one round. Attach the ball of yarn and then knit one round. And around the armpit area, whenever you join those part, you do little tricky stuff, but it's not difficult, so don't worry about it. And I want you to prepare some markers, 2 temporary marker and 1 begin marker, because this is new beginning, but this is not begin marker for sleeve. Anyway, just knit until one last stitch. I knit all the way down. This is almost end of the sleeve. Knit one, and this is one last stitch of sleeve. Put the temporary marker and then knit one last one. And now you're going to knit up some stitch. Do you remember 8 new cast when you join the body part? That's the 8 new cast. And for both sides, I want you to add extra knit up. So I'll show you right now. Right there, this is not the 8 new cast, so I knit up 1 and then knit 8 up. But I want you to add new begin marker, which is after 4 stitch of 8 new cast. That's the middle of the new cast. So add begin marker and knit 4 up. This is just above the 8 new cast before. Okay, 8 stitch. That's the mid of the 8 stitch. I add the new begin marker, then add another temporary marker, but you need to knit up 1 more extra, right? So total of 10. 8 new cast and then 1 each, both side. Then knit 1 more row until the first temporary marker. You increase 2 extra stitch, which is outside of the 8 new cast, right? So now you have to decrease, and I'll show you. And reason why I'm doing this, because connecting is always make tiny gap. And in this case, there's already, the gap, hole for design. So I don't really have to do this maybe, but, try to minimize the big gap around the armpit. It's crucial for me. So anyway, remove the first marker and then next 2 stitch, which is last original sleeve stitch and extra knit up, you make SSK, slip, slip, knit. This method minimizes the gap around the armpit area. It's hard to see because I have a little whole design, but believe me, it's, minimize the gap there. Anyway, this side, I decrease 1 stitch with SSK and then knit across until next temporary marker. And after the temporary marker, there's the 1 extra knit up stitch and then the first original sleeve stitch. And you will do knit two together there to minimize that, tiny gap. And after this, just start knitting your sleeve. But before you start knitting for your sleeve, make a plan. What do you want? I want short sleeve and little slightly, decrease curve like that. So I decide maybe I'm not gonna, knit too long, maybe 10 rows altogether plus rib. So I decide I am going to decrease every 5th row. Okay, I don't want a straight down sleeve. So here's the thing. This is the end of the 5th row. I knit for 5 times already. And then end of the 5th row, there's a 3 stitch left. Knit it together there. And then knit 1. 1 stitch decrease. Slide the marker, knit 1, slide 1 stitch, knit 1 more, and then PSSO, which is pass the slide stitch over. And this is beginning of the, the row 6. Okay, and then I did 1 more time decreasing. So I meet you at, again, end of the 5th row. I'll show you 1 more time. After first time decreasing, I knit another 5 rows because again, I decide I am going to decrease every 5th row, end of 5th row, right? So 3 stitch left on the 5th row, knit 2 together and knit 1, slide the begin marker, knit 1, purlwise, slide 1 stitch, then knit next one, then PSSO. That's it. And knit 1 more round, then start the rib. This is up to you. If you want to have the longer sleeve, you have to, think a little bit more carefully. And I will put the link in my description box for long sleeve sweater. You really have to make a plan a little bit more. And after this, I start making rib. Repeat off, knit 2 and purl 2 until your desired length, and the whole stitch should be multiple of 4. If, big if, the stitch count is not multiple of 4, then you adjust because, in my case, there was 2 stitch more. So I had to adjust the number to create multiple of 4 stitch number. But, it's really up to you. If you don't really care, you don't really have to be so, picky about the stitch count. Anyway, so I did few rows of the rib, then cast off. And obviously, after the cast off, you weave the every the ends off with the tapestry needle. This was top-down Raglan sweater. The difference from the other Raglan sweater is the Raglan line is cable knit. It's just beautiful. I always want to knit a pink sweater, and I just did. I'm so happy. I had a great time. Super easy to knit. Thank you for watching and enjoy knitting. Bye for now.